All right, good afternoon, everyone. We would like to welcome you to our Fall 2020 Higher and Post-Secondary Education Applied Project poster session. Thank you all for being here. First, we'd like to, of course, welcome our presenters and our graduate students who will be sharing with you all shortly about some of the work that they've done over the last 15 weeks, although in many cases for many of our students, this represents a longer engagement with the topic, whether it's through their own professional careers or through practicum experiences. But what this culminating project will give you an opportunity to do is to learn a little bit more about the things that they've been able to research and gather data on and share findings related to critical and timely issues within higher and post-secondary education context. I should have started by saying my name is Kia McGuire. I'm an associate professor in the higher and post-secondary education program. My gender pronouns are he, him, and his. Um, and I would also like to acknowledge the ancestral homelands of the Acme, Atham, and Peepash peoples' lands, which we all are working from and learning on. And so I would like to start by simply sharing a little bit about the program and more importantly, where this project fits within that within students' learning experiences. And then I'll turn it over to my colleague, Dr. McIntyre, who will share a little bit more about the floor of the events for today. Again, our higher and post-secondary education program is an opportunity and a learning experience that's really geared to prepare professionals to work in a variety of contexts on college and university campuses. One of the things that has become a core identity of our program has been the process by which we help and work alongside students as they learn ways to gather data, analyze data, all in the service of improving higher education practice and policy wherever they may be located. And so this applied inquiry or applied project, that poster session that you see here today is a culmination of a 15-week exercise or experience. During the first 7.5 weeks, our students have an opportunity to design a project. Of course, these projects are oftentimes very ambitious, and over our 15 weeks, we are able to pare it down into something that is not only manageable, but that will be impactful with the data that they're able to gather. And then in this session B of the semester, students are able to carry out their research project. And we'll get a little bit towards this at the end of the session today when we give some thank yous, but you should know this represents not only the work of our students and the faculty who are in the classroom, but also a number of mentors who sign up to work with students along and help give feedback on their projects as they're being designed and carried out. So we look forward to you all engaging with our students today, asking them questions, learning about their research, and hopefully having a very invigorating conversation. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. McIntyre, who will say a little bit more about how the rest of the afternoon will be spent.
Thank you. Hi there. My name is Lisa McIntyre. I am an executive director in the University Provost Office at ASU and teach in the Master in Higher Ed program. The applied project is one of my favorite classes because, as Dr. McGuire said, this is about the topics that the students are most interested in. And so I always learn a lot about topics that I maybe don't get exposure to on a regular basis. So I hope all our guests have that same experience. Our students will be presenting in small breakout rooms of 3 to 4 folks. Dr. McGuire is going to put a link in the chat where you can find the Zoom breakout room link for the individual that you're here to support or the breakout room that you're most interested in. They are grouped by topics. We ask that you mute your microphones. You're all doing a great job of that if you're not the one presenting. We will present in order of the link that Dr. McGuire just shared. There will be a facilitator in the room to just kind of make sure all the technical pieces go right. They will be recorded sessions. We also ask that you hold all your questions until all of the presentations in your breakout room are complete, and then we'll open up that session for questions. We do encourage you to ask questions. These folks are experts on this topic and have spent a lot of time and energy becoming experts. And so this is a great opportunity for them to answer any questions that you might have. Once all the presentations in your breakout room are complete, we ask you to come back to this main session room for us to wrap up the program. So with that, Dr. McGuire, anything I missed or you want to add before we break out?
Nope, that's it. And please reach out to us for any questions that you might have. Dr. McIntyre and I will be moving from room to room. I see that I just got a message in the chat asking, can individuals move from room to room? Yes, as long as you're not a presenter. So all of our guests beyond the students are able to again move as you would like to bounce around to hear different topics of conversation and discussion. And so again, at this time, we'll give folks about 5 to 7 minutes to make your way over to your rooms. For our students who are on the call, again, look at the sheet as well so that you can go to the room that you will be in. And yeah, I think that's it for now. So thank you and welcome all again.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to today's presentation. My name is Rachel Mickel, and the title of my presentation today is Impact of Religious Life Programming on Medical Student Wellness at the University of Arizona College of Medicine, Phoenix. I appreciate you joining me today as I share a few details about the exciting research that I was able to participate in for this program. I am currently employed by the University of Arizona College of Medicine, Phoenix, working closely with first-year medical students as they apply to and begin their studies at the College of Medicine. And one of the highlights of my role there currently is continuing to work with medical students in a kind of mentor capacity after they're already admitted as well. My other connection point to this topic is that I actually have my ministerial credentials, and I've been an assistant pastor in a Christian church for the last 3 years. However, to be perfectly honest, I have not actually necessarily combined these two interests together until fairly recently, but I am really pleased to be able to fuse these interests and passions that are in my life together now. And so today, as I mentioned, we will be talking about the impact of religious life programming on medical student wellness. So let's go ahead and get started. In the following presentation, my goal is to briefly touch on some of the main issues at stake in medical student wellness and begin to illustrate how religious or spiritual life programming and resources can positively impact or benefit medical student well-being. Some of the main barriers to medical student wellness in my eyes are listed here, including burnout levels and social demands from family or partners. You often hear that medical students are, quote, drinking from a fire hose when it comes to jumping into studies. So how can we possibly think about adding one more component to their already full schedules? The other important barrier to discussing this topic is ensuring that it is approached from an unbiased approach, or kind of an unbiased lens, I should say, recognizing that there are many nuances in the way that students express their belief systems. I call this variance of compliance in my research, in the sense that even if religious life programs are offered regularly by the institution, one student may be fully and totally committed and engaged in the program, while it might have a chilling effect on another student who identifies even with the same belief system. This agrees with Chickering and many other well-known works in student development theory. So my key research questions have a three-part approach. What is the impact, if any, of religious life resources on student wellness at the University of Arizona College of Medicine, Phoenix? Then, what are the limitations in place that would possibly prevent the institution from religious life programming? Maybe I should restate that. That would prevent the institution of religious life programming. Finally, does a lack of programming or resources impact overall medical student well-being? I really wanted to explore this topic broadly. I didn't have a theory in front of me ahead of time, but I wanted to approach it from a qualitative standpoint and really allow our discourse between the students and I to develop more organically. My methodology began as a generic qualitative study, but I did want to approach it, understanding that medical school by itself is a sort of phenomenon in that it goes beyond, maybe a typical doctoral or graduate level program. Because medical school is well known to be extremely demanding on students, both mentally as well as physically, as they're doing rotations and working in different hospitals and clinics. Of course, they're being challenged as well to take in information that's truly life or death. And I really believe that this is a very unique set of circumstances. So that's why I wanted to look at religiosity and spirituality and how students were really coping with this kind of pressure. And my goal too also was to hopefully see that religious life programming or a practice of spirituality did have some kind of impact on that stress level and on their coping abilities. You can see that all the interviews were completed virtually, and a few notes here on the demographics of the participants. So please note that the following information is taken from interviews completed since receiving IRB exemption / approval at both Arizona State and the University of Arizona College of Medicine, Phoenix. So due to the super limited time frame, this research will continue past the conclusion of this program, which I will detail a bit more later. Once I interviewed each student, I did take copious notes on each person, as well as used an auto transcription feature in Zoom to create a transcript. From there, I then re-listened to each recording at least 2 times to make sure that I was able to capture all the nuances of communication, whether that was, verbal or nonverbal, and I wanted to make sure that I captured any kind of patterns of speech or emotions that were displayed. Strauss and Corbin call the coding of repetitive, culturally tinged words in vivo coding. There's a form of this as well, I think, when students have a religious practice or a faith affiliation. Think of words like worship, love, grace, things like that. Those all may have a different meaning in a religious or faith affiliated context than they might otherwise. I also avoided fitting the data to preconceived notions by making sure that I interviewed a really broad cross-section of students. Not all of that information, of course, fits on this poster or this presentation, but I made sure that I had a good representation, not only of race or ethnicity, but also of religious affiliation and whatnot. So the following information was discerned through primarily, I would say, discourse analysis, in that I really was looking at different words and trying to break it down, through hermeneutics and cycling through different students of different faiths to make sure that I wasn't just kind of like front loading with one religion or another. I do want to note that I intended to interview at least one student who considered themselves to be non-religious or non-spiritual, but no candidates answered the pre-screening survey in that manner. So it can be said that all participants to date possess at least some measure of religious affiliation or personal spiritual practice. Some of the key themes from the sample interviews are as follows. 100% of the students that are interviewed cited their religious organization was a key part of their personal support network. Additionally, 100% of the interviewees that participated indicated the importance or the felt importance of religious practices as part of holistic wellness. You can see here that I do have 2 quotes representing these ideas from both the Christian Medical Society as well as the Muslim Student Association. Some of the subthemes that I found in addition include elements like the felt importance of having some kind of chaplain figure in their life. There was also a unanimous agreement that while there is an existing prayer room located at the College of Medicine, it's unfortunately located in a building that is almost never used by medical students on a random floor of one of the research lab facilities. This room is also a multi-purpose prayer / lactation / rest space that is really only large enough for 1 or 2 at most, and so it's not conducive to prayer gatherings of several individuals or any kind of meetings to read religious texts. Another subtheme that was noted was the idea that the transitions between years were not conducive to a sustainable model of religious life on campus. And this was pretty much true for all the students. All of the faith-affiliated student groups would essentially go extinct in between years, as the first years would come in and be so excited and get really thrilled and start doing all these events and things like that. Then as pressures mounted in the second year to prepare for the national board exams, also known as Step 1, they basically had to choose between their curricular requirements and, volunteering for the community or attending a different diversity kind of training or studying, of course, for this huge exam. So the groups would basically go extinct, and then the next first year group would come in and try to basically resuscitate this group. And so that was something that was very interesting in the interviews. I also saw a passive stance. Many students referred to their wellness as something that cannot really be changed. To them, it's an industry-wide issue that could only be addressed with massive overhaul to both the institution as well as on a national level, all the way from pre-med students, which I believe my colleague will be sharing about later in this room, to residents. And wellness is not a priority when there are always more patients and more shifts to take on. Another subtheme was the suggestion that religious life programming could be tied to the study of ethics in the curriculum. So students indicated they found value in meeting with peers and mentors in their faith to both apply their own faith principles to patient care, as well as learn from other faiths on how to best serve patients who identified with those religions, especially in terms of end-of-life care. All right, let's move to implications. I believe that this work has significant implications that both agree with the existing practices of the College of Medicine Phoenix and indicate where future steps are needed. Positively, this work agreed with the existing practices of creating both affinity groups and spaces for students to dialogue with other students from different backgrounds. Additionally, students felt overwhelmingly supported by administration to continue pursuing their unique interests through groups and activities. We already knew that there will be nuances in the way that students express or practice their religious faith or spirituality. So that was something that, we see as okay, it's an implication of this study, but it's something that's already acknowledged and known. Areas to grow included recommendations for the College of Medicine Phoenix to engage with discussions of spirituality more actively. Despite being a public institution, the data showed that students came from public undergraduate institutions with religious life departments, and they didn't seem to feel that it was biased or limited in any way. Of course, the institution would have to avoid partisanship, but it is something to consider going forward. Another is that religious diversity should be more readily considered in conversations about diversity. I did find it interesting that students felt that the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion on our campus focused primarily on race, ethnicity, and gender, but in the students' perspective, there was limited resources or conversations that really included or dialogued about this religious diversity. Finally, dedicated resources are needed. As I mentioned with the subtheme, that may come in the form of a chaplain or a more accessible prayer or study space on campus. Students simply felt that the multi-purpose spaces or ideas of these were not as useful to their overall wellness. Let's move on to the timeline here. As noted, this presentation only covered a sample population of this study, as Dr. Keon McGuire and I pursued IRB approval at both ASU and at the University of Arizona. Now that this exemption is approved, I will have the ability and opportunity to more broadly distribute the recruitment materials. I'd like to interview up to 80 total students, and then in April, I plan to finally submit to a peer-reviewed journal for publication. I'm very eager to see what other findings will come from these interviews, and I look forward to continuing to promote holistic wellness among the students that I serve. Finally, I'd like to close with a quote from one of my participants that seems to sum up the general feeling from students. They know the importance of this conversation, but they also seem to struggle to find the appropriate methods to incorporate this aspect of their well-being. They said, "These are really important topics to talk about because they pertain to things like end-of-life care or the patient's values, including what they value in treatment plans, how we respect them, and how we reconcile our beliefs and their beliefs. I just don't feel like we have enough time to talk about them." Thank you so much for coming to the presentation today. I definitely look forward to continuing this conversation and to answering any questions you may have. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. So thank you for that, Jordan. So I have to say, this is my first time participating in a virtual poster session, and that felt like a whirlwind, but in a good way. So thank you all for your presentations. Both Dr. McIntyre and I had an opportunity to hop around from room to room. I'm actually going to stop talking and turn over to Dr. McIntyre, and I'll say a little bit more to close us out at the end.
All right. I just wanted to congratulate all of you. You should be very proud of what you did. I know this semester was like none other. Just like Dr. McGuire, that was my first virtual poster session. And I just want to commend you all on your resilience and determination in making it work. We had all kinds of fun challenges to work through, and we all did it and had great communication. And I think you all, just the potential is limitless for all of you. So I wish you all the best of luck. I hope to hear updates from you all where your careers take you, and always here as a resource for you all. So I see all the applause and celebrations going up. It might be a bit much to unmute and do a round of applause, but want to thank all the guests, family members who were able to join us today. That is one of the great things about our virtual opportunity, is that I think we might have been able to expand our audience a bit more. We will be sharing recordings with the students. So if you weren't able to have a guest join us today, please share it with them. There's no way any of us would have made it through this program without all the support of our family and friends. And I also want to thank our colleagues. So every student in this part of the project has access to a professional mentor who's met with them multiple times throughout the semester and giving them feedback and encouragement. And so, thank you all for doing that for our students. It really was great to see the feedback and insights, and having that other perspective to bounce ideas around was really helpful and benefited the work. So, all right, well, I'll stop gushing. Dr. McGuire, what did you have?
Yeah, so just one more thank you before we move on, which is to Jody and her team who have handled all the logistical responsibilities for today, is setting up the virtual rooms, making sure all the Zoom links work, and making sure that we have facilitators in each room. So thank you to Jody, Ashley, Pinnock, Liam, Caitlin, for your support and making sure that this program went off without any hiccups. So thank you all very much for making this easy for Dr. McIntyre and myself. I also would just like to echo Dr. McIntyre and thank our mentors. Usually we have like mentors and program instructors like raise their hand. I think there's a reaction to do that. So if you know how to raise your hand or put a thumbs up, maybe if you want to put a thumbs up, how about that? So that we can acknowledge all of our mentors and program faculty who teach and work alongside our students throughout the program. Your support is sincerely and deeply appreciated. As you all know, I think one of the biggest strengths of our program is that we have meaningful and long-lasting relationships with individuals who are educators and scholars working both at ASU, but also across the Valley, and sometimes as well as in other states. And so we appreciate the support that you provide, and the mentorship, and the learning that you, or the way that you help to expand the learning of our students in our program. So thank you very much for that. And most importantly, I want to say congratulations and thank you to our students. I'm sure it cannot go overstated, I think, how unique this semester has been. And you all continue to approach the project and your capstone experience with enthusiasm, with a level of dedication, a level of flexibility and creativity that I think I was just excited to see, and gave me also energy as I entered and worked with you all over the last 7.5 weeks. And so I know very few things feel like it's normal as far as celebrating things in this particular context, but we do hope that you will find time to honor this moment in some way, to reflect back on all of the hard work that you've accomplished over your time in the program, and that you are able to enjoy at least a moment of reprieve with family and friends and colleagues, because what you have accomplished not only today and throughout the semester, but over the program, is definitely worth celebrating. And it has been our pleasure to be on this journey alongside of you. So there's just two more things before we wrap up. So first, one is kind of an announcement of sorts, which is at the very end, we'll ask all mentors, program faculty, and students to stay on the call so that we can take a photo. We may have to take multiple photos. I actually don't know how this works, taking photos in Zoom, but Jody will be here to assist us with that. Um, and also every semester during the capstone experience, we have an opportunity to recognize a student, one of your colleagues and peers, who is nominated by program faculty as a recognition for their achievement and contributions, both inside and outside of the classroom, to the higher and post-secondary education program. And so this year we'll have an opportunity to do the same. And what I'm going to do is just share very briefly what one nominator said about this particular student before I announce who the student is. And again, we and Lindsay, Dr. Dipple, who is on the call, normally does this part and does it much more eloquently than I do as I fumble through this process. But it's really an opportunity for us to recognize a peer who has made significant contributions, who has also impressed upon faculty with their dedication, not simply in this course, but throughout the program, and is therefore worthy of the nomination. We usually will hand you a piece of paper or a certificate of an award framed. we will have to connect after this in order to pass that along to you. But one nominator said about this student, that this student is extremely engaged. They also demonstrate a high level of intellectual curiosity, and they also not only work well with students, but embrace collaboration. And that this student in particular deserves recognition for their outstanding contributions that they made to the learning environment within and across classrooms. And so without further ado, that student is Dakota Weber. So let's give Dakota a round of applause. And also, Dakota, congratulations. I know you didn't know this was happening. You and I can connect after to make sure that you get your certificate and award. But again, congratulations, and for an award that's well deserved. Okay. Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right. So we're going to stop there. Again, thank you for everyone who came and visited with us. We'll ask for the students and program faculty and mentors to stay on so that we can get one picture, and we'll share that out with everyone as well.